that you.
And I just have to leave the screen up because we need to have it publicly recorded for our records.
Yeah.
So I can turn the TV off if you guys don't want to look at yourselves. Well, actually, I can't in case somebody joins.
There might be, I mean, there might be times when we want to like.
I described you and that's, you know, over on the committee, so.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You get to know Sarah Lee. She loves you. She thinks you're just wonderful.
Yeah, I love Denny. She's
Right, are we ready to, are we ready to get rolling?
okay. Yeah, she lived in the lodge.
Yeah.
Bring this meeting over then.
Is Ashanti coming to
Mr. Dowdy.
Oh, he is. Oh, okay. Would you be able to do those?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'll
we
be
might be-
talking about this person. Right here.
We might be on you for parts of what we were, parts of the information that we were hoping to get out of the shelter.
Oh, yeah.
If that's all right.
No problem.
Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us for this fourth meeting of the Wolf Depredation Compensation and Financial Assistance Committee. Really appreciate you all making your time to be here tonight. This is the moment when I think we start to see it all come together. We've done a lot of learning, a lot of discussing, a lot of compensation rate chart setting, and hopefully we walk out of the meeting today with the raw ingredients of a grant request to be submitted to the state, both for depredation compensation and for preventative measures. So before we jump into it, maybe we go around and do a round of introductions, and also welcome our new committee members, and Steve. You want to introduce yourself first? You name your what seat you hold on the committee, and you know anything else you want to share about yourself.
Okay, I'm Gordon Jones. I own a small resort in Camp Sherman called Lake Creek Lodge. And the role that, or the seat that I'm filling is ecotourism. So I'm not sure what the definition of that is, but we actually won an ecotourism award once in 2007 because we worked with the Forest Service and took a dam and a pond out of the middle of Lake Creek and they reconstructed it. It was all part of PGE's relicensing agreement on Round Butte. And there was grant money available to improve the environment or the streams and rivers in the basin for anadromous fish. So yeah, so I guess we are an ecotourism business by definition.
Yeah, and broadly the category that the seat that you're in is in a business slot.
Right. Yeah, I think there's
ecotourism specific.
Yeah. Well, I think there was one that was for in the ecotourism business. I'm not sure.
What the state told us is find two business representatives, and we, you know, as a committee, we saw well, we'd be interested in finding tourism related businesses. We'd be interested in having veterinary businesses represented. So
okay,
you two are perfect.
Yeah.
But Donna.
Oh, I am the Wolf Advocacy physician, Donna Harris. I've been here almost a year, I guess. Has it been that long? For me, this is the fourth meeting.
A year?
Has it been a year?
I think we did interviews in the spring.
I think that's what I'm doing. So, yeah.
Okay.
It was a very long
Not
process.
to make it sound like it's.
8 or 9 months, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Shoot.
Okay, the next.
I'm Sarah Lee, and I am also on the Wolf Advocacy Department.
Coexistence. Advocates for coexistence, right?
Strong coexistence.
I'm Jen Patterson. I work with the county and I'm the staff assigned to help support and provide assistance when needed to the school.
I'm Steve Papa, own a small business in this town, veterinary office, which deals with large animal and livestock and small animal. Basically, I fill another business area that hopefully has added interest with how livestock interact with it.
I'm Johnny Leeson, I'm one of the livestock producers and been here since the beginning.
I'm Ethan O'Brien. I'm also in one of the livestock producer positions. Yeah, I have a meat business, so what I do.
Bill Chang, one of your Deschutes County Commissioners, and that is one of the designated seats for this committee. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive right into our agenda. The first order of business is review and approval of the December 6th meeting minutes. Hopefully people had a chance to review the minutes and entertain a motion for adopting the minutes, approving the minutes. Do you want it first?
First and second.
Make a motion.
I make motion to adopt the previous meetings minutes.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we'll get into the meat of it. Ellie Gage is trying to get in here. So, the depredation request, basically, this is the part that, based on our earlier work, should be a little bit more straightforward. This part of the request covers our confirmed depredations. And then we can either choose to use the committee established compensation rates that we worked on, or provide some kind of alternative rate system with a justification for our request. And I think that it sounded like that's the direction it was going from from Jen's discussions with Ashanti.
Yeah, so I had a very quick phone conversation with Ashanti and he indicated that he was wanting to go for depredation grant request and for preventative measure grant request. So I sent 2 follow-up emails, including the compensation chart and the option to request more, but with some basic justification. I did not hear back from him, so I don't know if we had guidance on what you guys want to request for that. And just to preface this, you wouldn't be able to be a voting member on that depredation request or the preventative measure request specifically for Ashanti's ranch, but I don't think that there's an issue with having Sarah Lee put the request forward, whatever that financial compensation is. As far as I know.
Especially if you're not going to be voting on it,
Yeah.
then you can tell us whatever you know.
Is this like, are we formally applying for that, like right now in this meeting?
We're putting together the information. So sorry, we should explain kind of procedurally what's going to happen after this.
So the state has opened the grant request. It's open until March 1st. And so this is the meeting where you committee members would decide what you want to go forward with your grant request. There's not a whole lot of information on there, but I did talk with Sunny Summers, who presented before the committee 2 meetings ago. It's pretty basic what you have to submit. It's just basically dollar amounts with a couple of sentences backing that up. For the depredation, it's a little more specific, right? You have to have a confirmed livestock from ODFW, which we know of because we had Aaron Bob, the wolf biologist, come and speak. So we know there's a confirmed depredation in Deschutes County on Ashanti's property. with that livestock. So there is a very specific request for that depredation, right? The depredation requests are for depredations that have already happened. So we know there's one depredation in the county. Shantae's indicated that he wants to go after compensation for that depredation. So this would be the meeting asking the committee members for what that depredation amount is, and then the committee members would vote for that. And then additional agenda items are preventative measures, and there's two pockets to that. So there's, if a specific ranch or livestock owner wants to request specific or preventative measure dollars, then that is on the supplemental page of the application. What we heard from Sunny Summers was that that the state tends to preference the preventative measures requests for those ranchers and livestock owners who've had depredation or or are actually using preventative measure efforts already or plan to use preventative measure efforts. So that's kind of the priority we were told orally from the state on there. So if there's a specific rancher livestock owner with a depredation who wants to put in specific preventative measure dollar fund, this would also be the place to do that. And, you know, writing up basically a paragraph summary of what those preventative measures are going to be used for. And then additionally, the committee has the option of putting in a broader preventative measure grant request form. Doesn't have to be attached to a rancher or a livestock owner. It could be, you know, preventive measures are for future funds to be spent. So it could be used for educational purposes, for specific pockets of preventative measures, or some broader other general topics of preventative measures. So those are kind of the things that are looking at to be discussed here. I'm not sure the committee is going to have an opportunity to meet once again before all the paperwork needs to be turned in March 1st. There is on February 20th, there is a workshop that I'm going to attend just to help provide information that they're specifically looking for in the grant application. I will do that actual paperwork for the committee, but I would need that information from this group today to put into that grant application.
So in the ideal world, we walk out of the room today and Jen has a clear idea of what needs to go in our request. If we walk out of here today with like a kind of a broad brush idea of what's supposed to be in it, and we agree on some kind of process to refine that in the next couple of weeks, you know, outside of a full committee meeting, I think we can probably do that.
Well, I would say the other portion that I didn't mention as well is that it's again a recommendation from this committee on what you want to request for the grant. I still have to go before the board and get the board approval. So there's a lot. I don't think there's and because of the public meeting rules, I don't think that we can have separate meetings outside of this to shore down some of those requests. It needs to be public unless one or two committee members are going to decide that. But I believe that it probably needs to be in this public meeting forum, specifically what you would like to go after. And it's pretty broad strokes from the state of what they're looking for, but the grants will need to be written, and then I need to go before the board, and then so we have 28 days basically for that process.
So today's the day.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I do, and we'd want to check with legal counsel, but I do think if we have broad brush a sense of what we want to do, and the committee says, you one committee member, like, work with Jen to kind of flesh that out a little bit more in between now and the submission. I think that's okay. Like if we agree on that direction today and it's just one committee member, but
I wouldn't feel comfortable making that decision on behalf of the committee because I'm not allowed to be a voting member. So I wouldn't want to have any of the details of what the committee is requesting. I'm more than happy to do that whole go before the board with the finite details, but I don't have the power to, within the committee structure and charter, to make decisions on behalf of the committee. So unless it's the one committee member telling me very specifically.
I mean, so we'd be delegating we'd be empowering, as a group. And this is, we may not need to worry about this, but I can imagine a scenario where we walk out of here, like, we have a general sense of what we're doing, but we haven't nailed it, we haven't nailed the specifics down yet, what the proposal is gonna say. And it would be, we would want to have a way for committee members to give additional input in between now and March 1st, but
I would think that
Let's
would
cross that
probably need
bridge.
to be in a public forum of some sort.
So how again?
I don't wanna, I'll defer to the chair, but there's someone with raised hands.
I have two questions. First of all, we're talking about putting together a grant in general that projects what we think we need for the next year. But at the same time, we're also talking about a specific grant request for this particular guy who suffered a depredation.
Yeah, so
Okay.
the way this program
there's
works,
two parts. There is a depredation compensation request and a preventative measures.
One's.
So he's requesting both. So it's very specific to this particular rancher at this point, what we're talking about.
Yes, and, we know that the producer who's experienced the depredation has priority for preventative measure funds. But that's not the only thing that, we're not prohibited from submitting additional, request stuff, beyond that.
Okay, I know I'm a little late to the game, but is there a file with documentation on this depredation? Do we have anything concrete that we can look at?
so maybe I
On
can
the
just give a little
depredation
bit.
itself.
Would the FW biologist would.
Yeah, I mean, our job is not to evaluate whether the depredation was valid or not. ODF&W has already confirmed, this is a documented, confirmed, wolf depredation. So,
So there is, that's been made, but is there a file that says that talks about it and how much the cow weighed and all those kinds of things you need in order to judge what the compensation should be?
Give me in here.
sure. yes.
Okay, so two things, a little bit of background. It might be helpful for you, just for the committee members just coming on board. All of our meetings have been recorded. In our very first meeting, we had ODFW and ODA speak at our meetings and give us a lot of detail, particularly on the depredation confirmation. So depredation is, the grant requests are once a year. So it happens every springtime. ODA puts this out. So there's one opportunity for any wolf committee to submit grant requests. The depredation requests are for depredations that happened the year prior. So anything that happened in 2023. Preventative measures are for the year going forward. So preventative measures, so it's a little bit of forecasting. You're looking at forecasting for 2024. Within that, there's two different types of forecasting. There is what the committee wants to do as a whole, which there's been a lot of conversations about what the committee wants to do for preventative measures. And it can be pretty holistic. It doesn't have to be super detailed and specific. There is not a price chart whatsoever. All committees are doing all different things about what they're charging or their pools of money, but basically submitting pools of money for pockets of different types of preventative measures. Then additionally, if there is a specific rancher or livestock owner that wants to go after preventative measure requests for specific things on their ranch, the resource for them to do that is through this committee as well. So there is that. As far as the compensation rates for depredation, at the last meeting, the committee set depredation rates. There is not a standard across the state. The state does not check our work. They assume that what the committee put in is fair and legit. And then there's a line in there. And so it's broken down in the packet, but I also printed out just one separate sheet for the depredation rates, just for a quicker reference guide. But for those depredations, if there was a depredation, the owner of that depredation can come before the committee and saying, well, you said it was 2,500 for this category. However, my fair market value for the type of depredation I had is this, and this is the reason why. There doesn't have to be an extensive amount of documentation. It can be at the judgment of the committee to accept that depredation request or to determine a different depredation request.
But it has been confirmed that kill on Toll's land, Ashanti's
That is,
confirmed, written down, two or one.
all at two different counties. So Yeah.
Yeah.
over the county line. So for this only, there has been one confirmed depredation in Deschutes County by ODFW that has been properly documented and within the requirements for the depredation grant request the ODA receives, and that is Ashante Samuels is the owner of that depredation, and he has indicated that he'd like to go for a depredation request. So,
And just for your info, Gordon, Ashante and Sarah Lee,
Partnered.
partner, so
Yeah.
then she will have to abstain from voting because it affects her.
But there's no written application for this.
That's what we are going to be producing.
Because that's what I'm confused. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't
in
think
the
they can
packet,
give us, like, ODFW came to us information because they came about people's personal information. Is that kind of what?
so I know we had this conversation a little bit in email. I'm still a little unclear on the application that yours specifically, because,
Well, I got it better now,
okay,
but there's one for the future grant. that
which
we're-
is only preventative
We're
measures.
we're just making up a sum and saying, go
Yep.
for it. But the ones that were already confirmed,
The depredation.
does the county have anything written about this?
No, I'll check with Sunny to see, but so ODF, so the county has not specifically requested information. We have been told by officials at a public meeting of the Wolf Committee that there was a confirmed depredation in Deschutes County and the owner was Shante Samuels. But it is up to the owner to go after that. So like, the reason why ODFW told us that is because Ashante said it was okay to tell us that, right? Like, so the owner doesn't have to go, after the depredation request. If they come forward and want to go after it, which Ashante did in the public meeting, our first meeting, and ODFW confirmed to us. So ODA already had that documentation there.
we're the middleman.
Yeah, well,
That's what the county said, we need to establish a procedure.
which we did, which is the compensation rates. Sorry, the procedure's already set up by
But
ODA.
this person's applying for compensation, will provide evidence.
Right.
County says, Board of Commissioners says,
Have to provide evidence. Yeah, the ODFW.
I can get the paper from ODFW. Yeah. Now I understand where you're coming from.
No, I mean, they're gonna, ODA will want that documentation from ODFW, and they're gonna wanna make sure it matches. But it isn't our job to investigate the depredation.
Do we get to know anything about it?
Yeah, on the first meeting, I don't remember from Rose to be able to tell you about it, but the first meeting, they did talk about it extensively, our first Wolf Committee meeting on June 26th, and that meeting is online. It's interesting to listen to, but yeah,
Okay.
sorry. So as
So I can go
you
back.
two new committee members coming on board, yeah, but we did learn a little bit about that, but more of behavior. Too.
One last follow-up question is, Oregon Department of Agriculture states that it requires that applicants implement preventive measures to be reimbursed. So it's a two-pronged thing, right? You reimburse them for the depredation, but at that point, they're required then to implement preventive measures.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we also grant money forward for that,
Yes, so that's
depending
And
on
that's
what
part
they're-
of why the things are paired, right? You know, there's a
Yeah.
depredation compensation request, backward looking, a prevention request, forward looking.
And someone that just has maybe sightings near their animals can apply for, my understanding, can apply for the prevention measures. correct? Yeah. So maybe they haven't been preyed upon yet, but they're trying to prevent that from
They
happening.
could also get just the preventive
Yeah.
without having had a depredation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
Okay,
I
I'm
hope
just
you're
trying to-
happy. Okay, so it looks like we have confirmed kills on 1 calf and 3 yearlings. His point though is that we had like 4 depredations before that, before we like understood that we needed to like get the wolf biologist out there and stuff. So just speaking for him, I think I would just like to like put that out there that the ranch has confirmed kills and, you know, getting potentially reimbursed for the ones before the biologist came out is something that he would like to put before the committee. And that's 4 additional. So 1 calf, 3 yearlings, and then 4 additional yearlings before that.
And then
And-
those are all in Deschutes County, not on the other side of the county. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's other depredations in Jefferson County.
I think they're primarily in Deschutes County is our experience right now.
Can we even apply for something that wasn't
2023.
I don't think we
not
can.
confirmed
Not-
by ODFW?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, I guess like to me, it maybe came under like the missing, you know, the like, and I think that like, especially for a ranch that has had these confirmed kills, we know what we're looking at. I think as a committee, if I were voting and it wasn't my ranch, I guess I would vote for that, but whatever, you can do whatever you want. He also was wondering about there's like 18 confirmed calves with scarring and bite marks and stuff like that. The wolf biologist came out and confirmed for like antagonization. And I don't know if we talked about that, like stress and stuff.
Yeah, we talked.
I feel like we were talking about that. So he wanted to put that out there, that there's been stress. And he's really interested in all preventative measures that are available to us. So whatever that is, I think we can apply for whatever.
The challenge is that there's, I mean, if you look at the preventative measure awards that were made in other counties, I'm sure he has more preventative measure ideas than we can ask for funds for. So the question is, what would be his top priorities?
Range riding is the top priority. That's like a huge expense and we do a lot more of it than other ranches, it seems, based on just really trying to keep track of everybody. I also was curious about the virtual fencing, because I think we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, that
as
is
well.
Yeah, and we had originally thought about doing a depredation compensation request and then going to the preventive measures and having a separate conversation, but
Okay.
one of the, Jen shared a couple of things about what we know about preventive measures and I can, let me just re-emphasize a few of those and maybe add, just so we have all the information and we can jump back and forth between these two conversations. So what we know about the preventative measures request, there is a priority placed on producers who experience depredations. That's why we want to have a very focused discussion of the needs, the prevention needs at Ashanti's Ranch. We know that the state has set a minimum requirement that 30% of the total grant funds that come to Deschutes County need to be spent on prevention. I don't think we're going to have any problem with that. That basically as many depredations as there are, that just means that it strengthens our case to ask for even more prevention. So I don't think we need to worry about that minimum threshold on how much you ask for in prevention dollars. I think that's with that, the state was trying to push other communities. Hey, don't just ask us for compensation, do something about reducing future depredations. We know, you'll see in your packet, there's this basically a menu of preventative measures in this ODA application packet under category 3, non-lethal preventative techniques. So range riding is in there, barriers, reducing, it's all whole, reducing attractants, barriers, human presence, alarm or scare devices, livestock management, experimental practices, and other. So they didn't even presume that their menu was, was everything possible. They left it open that maybe people would have even other ideas. So, but they did set out this menu that we can just check boxes on if we want. We also know that, also in your packet, you'll see, at the end, you'll see charts from 2021 and 2022 on what the state distributed out of these funds to other counties. So that gives you a sense of, kind of how much how much compensation, how much prevention, maybe how much missing we might be able to secure for livestock producers in our county. And you'll notice that in 2022, the amount of money was significantly larger than it was in 2021. And it's my understanding that going from 2022 to 2023, we're working with even a larger amount at the state level. So, so even, looking at 2022, that's not even, that's not the ceiling for us. We can imagine that even the larger total amount of money at the state level that, a number of counties are trying to get a piece of. We also, as you heard Jen say, the application is pretty short. It's pretty brief. I think they were trying to make it simple for rural counties and for livestock producers. Not tons of bureaucracy, and there's a lot of flexibility. So we could we'd say we need $20,000 of prevention money for range riders, flattery, and then later on we could say, what would be better prevention measures with our $20,000 would be this and this instead. So there's we put forward a brief justification of our request now, and we can change, basically we can kind of adapt our thinking later on. So that's what I know about, or what we know about prevention. From our discussions here as a group, also we know that wolf activity in Deschutes County is relatively new, last couple of years. And because of that, there may be some real benefits to doing some general awareness raising, trainings, education activity. So I guess what that suggests to me is beyond whatever specific prevention measures we request for kind of the vicinity of Ashanti's a ranch, land holdings, we should be thinking about a more broad education awareness training kind of program for a bigger area, even a bigger area within the community, just so everybody knows there's wolves here and everybody's prepared to, do whatever they can so that we can reduce the likelihood of depredations. That's what we know about preventive measures. So then to go back to what we were just talking about, I know we definitely want to understand what the highest priority preventive measures are, and then I think we want to look at what other counties got in prevention dollars and kind of wave our hands and think about what how much we think we can ask for. And then we want to see what else we can, we want to tack on a certain amount for education, awareness, training, that kind of stuff in the community. So I think our prevention request looks like, but Definitely open to other thoughts or suggestions as well. And both we kind of, that was unpacking a lot about the preventive measures request, and sounds like we still need to go back and do some work on the actual depredation compensation portion of this as well.
As ODF and W, are they the ones that make the decisions on, they've said that yes, a deprivation took place in this area and this wolf pack, and is it collared or not? And because that determines a lot of the preventive measures, if it's a wolf they can track. But also if there's, in this case, missing livestock, there's a list of things that they require in order to documentation. You got to have checked with your neighbors. You have to have checked with the inspector for the tags and that kind of thing. And
You have to make an effort to try to.
There's actually an OAR on the very specific missing requirements of what the livestock owner,
what's an LAR?
OAR, Oregon.
Oregon administrative rules.
Okay.
And I can read that out. I have that pulled up if anyone's
So,
interested. but-
I mean, key question, does all that need to have happened at the time the animal went missing? Or can we kind of be retroactively suggesting that there was a missing
There's all, James pointed out something on here, there's the required documentation and what they need for us to lodge requests for them. And one of those things is a copy of the ODFW wolf depreciation investigation report.
Okay.
So it has to have a report for the predation, and that includes injury or death of livestock. You have to have a report from ODFW as part of the application process. That's required as part of the thing.
I just emailed Aaron about while we were talking and asked him, because my understanding also, so I asked him for this information.
Yeah.
My understanding also is that I get the notifications. I've only seen one confirmed by ODFW. Depredation in Deschutes County. So I've asked Aaron to let me know, but like it has to fall within ODFW's confirmed depredation to be eligible for depredation request. Now the missing, that's a good question if we can go back retroactively, but it does say pursuant to OAR blah, 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 to qualify for compensation for missing livestock, producers must document that other possible causes for their animals to be missing, not including wolf depredation, may have been eliminated for the number of missing animals they're claiming. And there's a whole lot more to that. And Sunny did present to us a lot of information on that, but Aaron just got back to me, but there is a lot of documentation needing also for that missing portion. So there's only one confirmed ODFW wolf kill. It was on Ashante's. There are two more, or another one in Jefferson County. So he can go with the Jefferson County, but it has to be within Deschutes County. It has to be within Deschutes County limits because it's the way these wolf committees are set up is per county. So he would be eligible for the depredation to happen in Jefferson County. I know I think he's on the Jefferson County Wolf Committee actually. So he can apply for that depredation through them, but there's only one confirmed depredation in Deschutes County. So I will get that paperwork from Aaron.
What about the injuries that Shirley was describing? When those things occurred, did ODFW come and check it out, or?
That's my understanding. So you could ask him about injury.
I'll reply back right now. Yeah,
Because I know that he's been out there quite a bit and maybe they are on different, because we're on the county line, so.
Yeah.
Most of those calves reading that have been injured have had to be put down because of their injuries, and they're confirmed by the ODFW biologist. So
Ashanti.
unless he thought it was so extreme.
I don't think that we put that down.
Yeah, but in other counties,
Oh,
ODFW will say, well, this is really injured and it's injured, it's going to die, we'll put it down, so. But ODFW still, as I understand, still has to rule on that.
Generate a report.
Yeah, right.
But also I understand is that anything that happened in 2023 he could go back now and ask for ODFW to help him document it to the best of his ability.
Foreclose of applications, yeah.
Yeah, he's got it.
We're up against a timeline, and I think some of these are pretty, I would say the more intensive portion of the whole application is the actual verification of the depredation and their missing livestock.
Yeah.
But I'm sending Aaron several of these questions, so we'll see if we get some clarification during this week.
So, yeah, I mean, and did you ask him about the missing, whether
Yeah.
it's possible if ODFW didn't confirm the missing at the time the animal went missing? Yeah,
That
is it
might be a
possible
question,
back-
I think that's a question for ODA, because ODA confirms, like ODF just does the case, but ODA is the overseeing agent on what they take for the paperwork. So I'll put that question to Sunny tomorrow.
On the missing, I noticed it doesn't say anything about having to have a government department or anything, or any report other than map or other documentation showing where it went missing from.
And I think she said that to us as well. I felt like Sunny said that, but they do have to show that they did some sort of due diligence to
Right.
find that missing livestock.
And then on the next 3 or something, it was asking what did the committee do to rule these out? I don't know what we can and what we do, what we can't do. I mean, we're supposed to ask questions. Is that what we were supposed to?
Can I suggest that we start with like what we know? We know that there has been one kill that we'll confirm with ODFW. We work through just the death one. We assign a value. We kind of work through, all right, we've done the death. Then we talk about the injury. Then we talk about missing. Kind of just work our way through. Obviously, we aren't going to be able to we can assign values and stuff like that to them if they're confirmed by, right. It sounds like we need to hear from Aaron to confirm what has happened. I take word for it, but it's just like covering our ass.
Yeah, we can assume that all of these will be accepted and kind of, identify what information we need to provide, and then between ODFW and ODA, they can narrow that for us before we submit. How's that sound?
I guess my conundrum is that anything like this is subject to abuse, right? And so there has to be a system to make it as believable as possible and a way to make a judgment. Are we going to make that judgment, or does ODFW make that judgment? If ODFW makes it, we're just a rubber stamp, so to speak. We just send in the grant, get the request, way it goes. But if we're expected to make a judgment, then we really need to have a packet of information that's very specific and the forms filled out and those kinds of things. Otherwise, you're just guessing.
I mean, the way I think of it, let's just talk about the depredations. Okay, the way I think of it is it's ODFW's job to confirm the depredation. It's our job to set the rate schedule.
Okay, that's
Or agree on an alternative rate schedule.
but missing
That's
cattle,
our.
yeah, missing cattle is a whole different thing. And I happen to be neighbors with a very irresponsible rancher who often, he'll get his cattle rounded up in the fall. And often there's 8 to 12 that he just doesn't catch. And they get out in the marsh and they're stranded and he just leaves them. 2 or 3 will die during the winter every year. And he also leaves carcasses around, which are an attractive nuisance. And one wolf had to be shot because of that. So I think we as a committee need to be careful that we, don't just give money away on people's word without some process that is at least attempts to be, very carefully administered. That's all.
Just to interject, LEH may mention that in the public thing, but I'm gonna talk on that a little bit if I have any time on the agenda. Crook County is not even considering missing cattle. It's so controversial. They've excluded it. Unlike Baker County, I think when we had the talk in our last meeting, and she was the one that listed all these things that have to be done. The brand inspector, you have to show that you've talked to them. You've had to go out and count your cattle, as they come in, as they're loaded up, to take them out of the pasture. So they're, but Crook County, as far as I understand, Ellie may correct me later on, they are not even using that category. It's too hard to deal with.
Well, if you look at the, if you look at the,
Yeah, well.
at the awards,
Yeah.
at the awards the last couple of years, in
A lot of-
2021,
a lot of-
there were only two counties where the missing category was, where there were any awards. And then in 2022, there was 4.
The amounts did go up considerably.
And the amounts do go up considerably, so.
I mean, it's possible that the committee can choose to punt that conversation because it hasn't been hashed out. It's up to you guys. I just want to be in the interest of time too. We're almost an hour into the.
Yeah, I mean, so what I would suggest is instead of, like, we can argue about whether we should or we shouldn't, but I think it probably wouldn't take that long for us to just figure out, if we do, this is what we would say. And then, Jen can work on sorting out with ODFW and ODA, you know, whether these would be allowed, you know, we would be allowed to submit these or not. One way we could go on this.
So Sarah Lee, do you know if it was a calf or a cow that was confirmed? Depredation,
I think it was a yearling.
a yearling, so it would be in that replacement cost. 1,935 would be.
I'm not even sure if the missing compensation
No,
rates are the same as the
No,
the
depredation.
depredation. Okay.
Yeah, the depredation. The confirmed one.
I did ask Aaron too. I haven't heard back from him on that. But. Yeah, I guess it.
So we go with our chart here.
Well, unless the producer wants to make the argument that for a different, you know, a different,
That no one's working.
He would need
confirmed.
to be here to do that. So if he's not here, it's just like what it is. That's fine.
sure, I mean.
Yeah.
That's something we can get from, you know, that if that's, you know, it's a couple of sentences or a paragraph justification, I mean, that's something that you can submit to Jen later.
I mean, is it something, don't we need to like make the, you know, we're not.
Well, we
allowed
would
to add
need
any
to-
more information and voting in public. and all
If there's a
stuff.
dollar amount, then the committee can vote on that, and for the supplemental is adding in the 2 sentences of justification, but the committee would need to vote on the dollar amount for the deprivation
happen
grant
today.
request, like that needs to be
Okay.
a majority of the committee to vote on that.
Yeah, I mean,
But
if
if
you
we're
feel
at-
like these were fair, if you didn't feel like these were fair, then you'd be, you know.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
And did we, I haven't heard back from Aaron, but I asked him specifically if he knew the age and weight of the animal, but do you know what?
My
You know what
understanding is
category?
that it was a yearling, as I just said, but like I say, we need to know exactly from the guy, whatever the hell he says, let's just put it in under this rate, you know, that should be really easy, that's like
Yeah.
cut and dry, black and white, you know, no big deal.
So kind of in essence, what Aaron Watts has in his report,
Yeah,
whatever matches in that
Yeah.
report with this table, done.
Right, so the yearling rate is done by pound, so once I hear what the pound is in the
But we
report.
just added count, we did it really, we're doing it by
Yeah,
head.
you
Total
totally-
that was in.
Oh, I see, I did
Just,
1930.
1935.
That was to,
Yeah, so as long as it's actually, as long as his reports say it's a yearling,
yeah,
then
that's what you get.
that's what you
I think that was.
He said steer, but this is before I asked him specifically what kind, but he said steer.
well,
Is that the
it's
same
bigger
thing?
than it's not a calf.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, or it could be a butcher animal, I guess, you know, that's like cutting the hairs pretty fine, so whatever he comes up with.
Yeah.
is
He
fine.
said the calf was, this is Aaron's first email, hey Jen, 1 confirmed in Deschutes County, a steer. Shante did have 2, but the second one was a calf in Jefferson County, so it's a steer. Does that?
So do we need to just?
a steer can be a year.
Yeah.
I am not.
I mean,
versed in
tall,
that.
I really.
So that's category 1.
All right. And then,
So I think there needs to be a vote on
Yep.
that, for that compensation rate, and that would be the vote that Sarah Lee would abstain from.
Sure. So the proposal is that we just, instead of whatever the report says that it's, and we're assuming it's a yearling, if it's whatever it says in Aaron Bott's report, we just match up the funds. to what his report says. Is that something to vote on?
I'll second.
Aye,
Does that sound all right? Call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Apparently you're abstaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Let's check on that. Do we want to go to missing or injured?
Can we find out from Aaron if he has record of the?
I asked that question, I haven't heard back, yeah, yeah.
So assuming that he says yes,
Right, then
which
should
I'm
we just
sure he
like
will,
vote that
Yeah.
like whatever his report says?
what do we do?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so so
The
injured,
only problem is we haven't come up with like injured rates.
Yeah, we
you
don't
know,
I mean, that's like, that's kind of a thing.
yeah. But I mean, you know, it's interesting when, I don't know if this means that they did it combined, but,
The numbers are all pretty high.
But
Like
these-
these, you've got lots of death injuries, they usually match up with lots of missing, you know what I mean?
right. I mean, in the other counties, the category was, there's a category, you know, I mean, and this may be, they may have like consolidated information, but they had a confirmed probable death injury, category for.
That's interesting, we haven't discussed probable death, because when I was saying like, okay, well, these are the ones that were killed before we knew what was going on, like, they're not missing. They're dead. You know, so like.
So you did,
calling
you
the
found them
ambulance
dead.
And like, going through this process is like, that's not real in this case. Yeah, so, anyway.
Did you find them?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And were they just, what was left of?
I mean,
How long, had they been dead?
I think it was like pretty recent. I just like, I'm not there, so I'm like having a hard time with this, because Todd's like, we had all these animals die, we have like one in Deschutes County, so I wanna be like really careful about what I say, but I know that like, there's been a lot of rioting, there's deaths on the ranch, like in the winter time. Like clearly in Deschutes County, like where we feed hay, not like out in the springtime.
Yeah.
And that's when things started to escalate. And then it's like, what is the process? Oh, we didn't know the process. So, and now that we've spent so much time with the wolf biologist, it was like completely clear, like what happened to these animals at this point, so.
And these were prior to the confirmed death.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
So
And so
before our committee was even. formed,
Yeah.
So we can't.
well, I mean, the depredation race before I mean, it's,
Well, it was right around May.
I think that falls in 2023, it's,
yeah, I mean, I think we're good from
Picking
2023.
up, right? I mean, you're talking to people that,
But
then it's like, okay, now there's wolves here. Okay, now they're killing cows. What are we doing about it? As ranchers, like, it's like, oh, the government's gonna send us some money, it'll be fine. Like, what does that mean? Oh, like you have to have a whole county thing. I mean,
you
it's
have to have a
it's
committee, you
big
have to have an
deal.
ODFW
Now, if
investigation.
someone has a kill, oh, there's a process, but there wasn't a process. And I think that it's really good to think about that. As like where we are in time,
Sure.
in our
But it is retroactive, I think, as long as it happened, say,
2023.
2023.
yeah.
I get on to
Absolutely.
that.
Like,
Yeah.
this committee is a result of the kills that happened on our ranch.
I mean,
Like, we wouldn't exist if there weren't depredations, really. I mean, it's like, things are changing. There's a lot of counties on this list that aren't on this list. How many counties are in Oregon that are like, it's not like every
36 counties.
county just has a wolf committee. You have a wolf committee because you have wolves.
I mean, we set the gears in motion to have a committee after there were confirmed wolves in the county, before the first depredations, but I guess the key question for me when we're talking about injured or we're talking about missing, is how much ODF&W investigation is required to,
I heard back.
okay, to support a claim. Because if they come back and say, you have to have had, ODFW has to have investigated it, given you, we think this animal's missing because of wolves, or we think those injuries were from wolves. If we need to have that, then we got nothing, but if,
We don't.
okay.
So Aaron said, so it was a yearling, so we have that. So that was good. He said, I've not received any communication from Ashanti or his Cowboys of missing livestock claims. As far as I know, he wasn't making any missing livestock claims, but Aaron could be wrong. Usually the producer presents their past records. The committee is evidence to discuss missing livestock compensation. So he's confirming, I think what we heard from Sunny is the missing is not part of an we don't need an official ruling or participation from ODFW on missing, but we do need the livestock owner to come before us with documentation of some sort, which has not been designated by this committee, but I think that we're in okay territory, but the depredation and missing claims does have to come from the owner or manager of those livestock. And I think with Sarah Lee's relationship there, that is within the category, but I just want to maybe being a little bit on the gray edge of that.
And for this, if it's not cut and dry, ODF and W investigated that and confirmed it, then it would be the committee's responsibility to basically
Make a judgment.
suss it out. Yeah.
So there'd be a form to fill out, an application.
Yeah.
I mean,
There should be, right? There should be. And if Ashanti wanted to claim for the missing cattle that, other people witnessed the carcasses and saw that they'd been killed, it shouldn't be hard to get that written down and signed and brought in and say, okay, we had 4 of their cattle killed and I'm verifying, and here's my signed statement saying that I'd like to apply for compensation. I mean, it just needs to be a believable process that people are validating or swearing to the fact that this happened.
Especially in this first year where we haven't, as Sarah Lee was saying, that like no one really knew what was going on in early days.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
not
this
even a
first
form
year-
to fill out or
Yeah.
anything else yet.
This first year, I think we can give a little bit more leeway towards it because no one knew what to do.
Yeah.
And then in future years, we can kind of have our form you have to fill out. But I think I agree with you, Gordon, that like an affidavit or something by the producer, and then maybe something from Aaron Five saying that, yep, I believe this story to be, plausible.
Yeah, and I'll check with Aaron, so it sounds like they don't investigate that so much, but it also sounds like Aaron is in constant contact with these owner livestock. But he did say I covered 16 counties. That was his last sentence of the email. So there is that consideration too, but I'm not sure it's a big lift if.
And for Gordon and Steve, I mean, in our first meeting, I mean, both Ashanti and Aaron came in and they talked extensively about the situation, basically, okay, you got a pair of wolves in the Toys Basin. They're ranging out to here. We've got a confirmed kill. We have a lot of, those wolves are in this area, in the area of Ashanti's range, a lot. So if just based on what we heard in our first meeting or two, there was a lot for us to reach the conclusion that this is a plausible story, I guess. But again, we weren't at the time, we weren't listening to the story with this kind of, we're going to be passing a verdict later on. But I mean, that story, there's this pair of wolves. They're in this area a lot. They're harassing a lot of livestock. I definitely heard that story.
But as far as the 18 injured calves, I get the weekly ODFW reports on all the predations throughout the state. And they're under a category of confirmed death and injury that results either in deaf because there's so much injury, or they have to be euthanized because of the injuries. So they don't really have a category of a scratch or some injuries, and that can be included in that. ODFW would have to confirm that.
A recovered injury doesn't count. But
Pardon?
an injury you've recovered from,
Yeah,
counts,
no,
recovered from doesn't
that
count.
wouldn't be reported
Yeah.
then, because he lived, you know, it wasn't that serious, but,
So that's why they lump confirmed injury.
Yeah.
In this.
injury that led to death and euthanasia, you know, so severe that you don't want to have the calf or steer live through it. Or it wouldn't live through it.
What I'm hearing is the missing cattle, it's been confirmed that they were killed by wolves, sounds like. Isn't there some other county that has an affidavit that an applicant can sign and submit to us? Or could county council come up with an affidavit? I mean, there's forms out there, I mean, that just says, you know, is the applicant so-and-so ranch, whatever, on approximately this date. And this was confirmed from a visual inspection of a carcass later. You know, I mean, there's a little story you could write and sign the affidavit, and then you got something to judge and.
I'll say, I'm just reading this, Word document that was put out by ODA. They have, it's 3 pages. I can put it up on the screen if people want to see it, but it's suggested ways to satisfy requirements for missing.
Oh.
And there's 4 separate suggested ways, pretty detailed out. So, you want me to put it up there now? I'm not.
This, I find this required documentation table on the numbers, but I personally, if most of these points, was it page 5?
5 from the back.
5 from the back. If most of these points were kind of at least referenced in an affidavit, I think that would be pretty good. We could, you know what I mean? Like, I know we've got a short time frame. I'm like, all right, we have to go to lawyers and all that kind of stuff right now. Whereas if Shante could go through the points, write an email to Jen, or sign, or a bit of paper and sign it or whatever, and then we go, okay. Aaron Bott also agrees that that's a high chance of happening and being true. Like, just not, he can't confirm it because he wasn't there, but like at least saying that yes, this is a plausible story. That would be, personally, I'd find that to be satisfactory for this year's kind of missing and injured claims, because we didn't have, we'll get some grace period because she didn't know what to do this year. It's all new and all that kind of stuff.
Compensation rate.
Yeah, we just need to set a compensation rate and agree to what to go with from there. If Ashanti's happy to.
You kind of get some back, like what your predicted losses, because then we would factor on 3% loss, and anyone who loses a calf, they kind of come in and eat on them. But I know that's not always predicted, but do we factor that in as well? What you already are thinking, is even with no predation, you know, what you're gonna lose in an average year.
Yeah, you are going to lose some in average year. Yeah. So from the sounds of things, you said, Sarah Lee, that 1 calf and 3 yearlings is in addition to the confirmed kill for 2023, roughly.
That is my understanding, and I suppose like some of them maybe in like Jefferson County or whatever,
Sure.
you know, so I need to like. I mean, I just don't think that we're gonna be able to like come up with the thing tonight.
Unfortunately, make it rate.
Yeah, just make
Like
it right for missing.
50% of the,
Yep,
of our compensation rate for confirmed.
missing. Yep.
Is missing category.
Yep.
Because
I would
comes up with whatever numbers and documentation he can.
Yeah.
And it's done.
Yep.
Or
I think
70%.
on the map,
Yeah.
the big deal here, like kind of where it was at in the pasture.
It's the,
Oh, okay,
that's this first requirement.
okay.
And
Demonstrate
they
that
have 4 different like things, so that's one of them, but.
I mean, just to read the top lines, the producer must be able to demonstrate to the committee that the missing livestock losses occurred within an area of known wolf activity as executed by ODFW. Okay, so that would be something we would ask the producer to write a little explanation of that, and then if ODFW give it the thumbs up, I would feel pretty comfortable with that. What's the second requirement, Jen?
So I think the way that this is laid out is four requirements, sorry. I was looking at that differently.
Second one. Producer must be able to rule out or eliminate other possible causes for their missing livestock. So that would be, again, something that the producer would write out for us. And I would feel better having ODFW evaluate that than any. Some of you might be in, recently.
That's pretty good.
You make it scrolling.
Yes, requirement number 3, committee must determine that the producer did not create circumstances, attract those, or encourage conflict between wolves and livestock or working dogs.
I know.
That's likely like leaving a carcass out.
Yeah, track.
Yeah,
I mean,
should have been buried,
and again, we heard a pretty extensive story in our first and second meetings, and Aaron Bott, expressed a lot of appreciation for Ashanti and his animal husbandry practices in relation to bulls. So we may have already heard enough to kind of assess
That's
this
maybe
question.
for moving into this year to get it done.
Yeah.
Just stipulate that what has already been demonstrated satisfies this. This is the compensation we'll do, and leave it at that.
And they're
But
just
in
gonna
the
say,
future, there needs to be some more formal something.
and it's just a basic yes or no, if they give the funds for him.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's just a basic yes or no, if they give the funds, they're not gonna ask for more.
No, we don't need to show this to them. And again, I'll just go up to here if you can see. This is just suggested ways to satisfy requirements. From what I'm hearing, I think that the majority of the committee has heard the proof of these suggested ways from the first time, from the June 26th meeting with Aaron Bott and Ashanti Samuels. Of all the things, I mean, I saw on his app with the colors on that, what he's doing, they're pretty detailed about what he's doing and how he's being proactive. And Aaron, I think, sang the praises of their practice of what they're doing on their ranch to coexist and to not attract wolves. So from what I'm hearing, I would say, I think the majority of the committee has heard in person the satisfaction of this. And that potentially going forward at a future meeting, the committee will establish a more formal process for missing livestock that occurred in 2024 to be considered for grant refunds or depredation or missing grant requests in 2025. But that for the intent and purposes of the timeline that we're on now, it looks like just something that I could do is confirm with Ashanti what he is claiming is happening within Deschutes County and the size. And there's been a suggestion that the committee applies a grant for 50% of the established compensation rates of the missing cattle.
Yes.
And is there a maximum amount that the committee wants to establish, like 4, 5, 10, 2? Is there? I don't want to make that decision of like, if they come back with 15 missing, I think that I'm not suggesting ill looks. I think that Ashanti has demonstrated extensively that they are trying to do all the right things, but is there a maximum amount of livestock missing that the committee wants to include in that grant? And then so all that stuff that I wrapped up, you guys should probably discuss and then make a motion for what you're comfortable with.
I was still, before we do.
I was going to say so moved.
Is anyone else interested in getting a written statement from Ashanti just for of his occurrence? Sorry?
The records of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing for us to have a written statement and just to, run it past Aaron Bott. Yeah, and say, does this seem plausible? Which I'm guessing he'll say.
And if he, for me personally, if he can just knock on, at least mention most of the points in this category too.
Okay.
I think that's basically a guide of how to write up a statement in my mind for him. It's required documentation. So if he could hit each of those points in his statement, sign it, Aaron Bott says, yeah, I believe this, as someone who's been out to the farm and seen this kind of stuff, so the ranch. And then we pay 50% of whatever his claim is on yearling calves, whatever's been lost. I'm happy with it.
I'll second that.
I motion that then, yeah.
You take them all.
I'm trying to do the minutes while talking too much. Okay, so Ethan made the motion and Gordon seconded it. And the motion is, I'll have to retype this, but the committee would like a written statement from Ashante that covers the questions listed in category 2 of page 3 on the 2024 grant request application. And have Aaron Bott review that written statement and give an approval, or what do you want out of Aaron?
Yeah.
Does Aaron have to do it, or can?
No one has to do it.
The word they use in here is probable. If it was a probable depredation, then
If Aaron can say, yeah, I believe this to be of high, like probable, yeah, let's use that's in the statement, probable, highly probable, then I can't confirm or deny.
The FW
I
confirms
don't
that it's a
even get him
problem.
to say things that are probable. His job is to confirm.
Okay.
So like, that is like, we can put it out there, but I'm telling you, I don't think it's gonna happen.
If it's, yeah, if you're asking in, so this would be something I'd want solidly known from the committee. If Aaron Bott doesn't say so, are you still willing to move forward with that grant application?
For the missing.
I think for the first year we have a bit of, like, let's be
So maybe we
plenty
could,
nice and leeway and all that kind of stuff, because it's first year, we're all trying to figure it out.
how about I use words like we send to Aaron Bott for his review?
Yep.
Without asking
Sure.
something in return.
Yes.
And then do you guys want to put a limit on how up to X amount of missing animals?
Sure.
You don't have to, I'm just asking if that.
we don't know the number.
Right.
Billy writes a statement.
Yeah. I feel like that's, something we can't really agree upon unless we know.
Oh, Sarah Lee
But
said
we
one
could-
car, 3 yearlings, and then 4 additional yearlings, but they might have been another year
Or in a different county.
or in a different county.
Yeah, so anyway, I mean, he's saying that there's like 80 animals total potentially between both counties, so we could say like 10 animals or something, like reasonable.
more than 10.
You guys, I mean, running pretty much, would you say 50% in each county, would you say?
No,
No, that's mostly the trees.
well, a lot of it has happened in the winter time and like at home, you know?
Well,
In the winter time, they're close.
You don't have them out of the allotments. Then, well, in the winter.
Yeah, they didn't go out until June,
How many cattle do you have?
700 animals, so.
Just 10 seemed like a reasonable maximum.
Pretty high. So you're saying that there was 7 to start with, right? You 8?
it's an 8, right?
You said, yeah, I didn't think you said 10 animals.
Oh, okay.
But that 8 number included the confirmations.
Yeah,
And so maybe 6 then.
I don't think, it sounds like he's not even asked for that many anyways, but 6. Anyway, doesn't like.
Okay, let me read what are we doing do 6? I can read you what I wrote as the motion, just to make sure that it's the
Okay.
right thing.
And we haven't voted on it yet, so
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you.
Okay, Ethan O'Brien made a motion, okay, so you're gonna make the motion.
No.
To accept missing livestock claims from Asante Samuels if he provides a written statement covering the questions in category 2 on page 3 of the 2024 grant request application. The written statement will be emailed to Aaron Bott with ODFW for a review. The committee approved up to 6 missing compensation claims from Asante Samuels, and the compensation claims will be made at a 50% of the established committee rate for depredation. Does that cover?
You might put the word missing in there a couple more times, just. to
Okay,
make it
highlight
clear
the
that-
missing.
Yeah, missing compensation, definitely.
Okay. So now Ethan,
I motion everything. Jamie said.
So moved. Anyone want a second?
And then next year, we will have an actual formal missing application.
Do we want to discuss this before we do a vote? Because that'll happen pretty fast. Or is everybody fully tracked and digested? Any more discussion? No? Okay,
and then Sarah Lee will have to abstain from this one as well.
call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to the regular meeting screen then.
Thank you. What we had intended to save a bunch of time for the preventative measures discussion, but that was important to, we hadn't really thought about missing and injured animals, of course, so glad we spent the time on it. Now I think we can go to the preventive measures discussion. You've already gotten all the background. I think what we need to do is determine what preventative measures the producer who's experienced depredations would like to put forward, and then B, talk about anything beyond that that's county-wide or region-wide that we would like to submit for. And it's interesting because we don't have based on that discussion of confirmed depredations and missing, we don't have like a clear number in those categories to compare with the preventive measures. So we don't know what our 30% ratio is, but I think we can be very ambitious basically with our preventive measures, and then if it ends up being like $150,000, we can scale back. But
We're talking about preventive measures just for this one particular depredation at this point.
for this livestock producer,
Right, so that he can implement those going forward.
so that for that livestock producer, but then also anything more broadly. I mean, and that could be a county-wide education awareness training. It could be preventative measures for the other 4 landowners in that immediate area. For example, so I mean, we could kind of bullseye out from there.
Should we start with what, Sarah Lee, do you have any proposals on what you would like?
That's I think where they start, yeah.
Well, he mentioned the range riding primarily, and then there was mention of guardian dogs.
Have you tried getting dogs before?
No, and it's very difficult for me to imagine that because it's, keeping the guardian dog with the animals.
No, they range, they do their own thing.
Right,
Yeah.
which I'm like, well, I guess that's how it works.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, I don't want to have anything to do with guardian dogs, but there was interest. So I mean, we could put it in the application. I mean, we don't even know if we're gonna get awarded the thing, so then it's like, oh, we got the award for the guardian dogs. Oh,
And there is flexibility, so you can kind of put something forward and then say
Yeah, it's
like
like,
the other preventive measure would be better.
yeah, why not apply for it, I guess.
But you did also mention the virtual fence. For the,
Yeah.
Is that what it's called, the virtual
Mhm.
fence?
So we have to have a collar on each animal.
And you already have, animals are already collared.
Mhm. But it's just an annual cost, and I sent an email about that, like what it does cost. whatever.
And that doesn't necessarily account for the calves that are gonna be born in the next couple months, right?
Yeah, you don't collar calves. You collar their moms and yearlings.
You don't even collar every cow, do you? You kind of collar.
We collared every cow.
Do you?
Yeah. A lot of collar.
And then, I mean, is there like software licensing that you have to renew? And
Right,
stuff
it's like an annual rental fee. And we buy towers and, towers. Towers are like $10,000 and they're permanently out on the range and they, really make the whole thing work better. You know, so this was our first year with it. We like started with one tower, you know? But it's quite costly and it's brand new. And so anyway, applying for funds to like assist with that, especially because it's like a known preventative measure to use the virtual fencing. So anyway,
Would you wanna hazard
What's the number?
some numbers? You know, throw out some dollar amounts.
25,000.
Like, do you wanna assign numbers to each of those categories or like?
25,000 for the virtual fencing.
I have something to add to that. They did a little investigating and a European company has just come out with, it's called Will Fence. I don't know if you've looked into that. It's much, much cheaper and it's used in the US. It doesn't require a base station. It does rely on cellular telephone networks. So I don't know if that's a problem. But
Probably why you need the towers, right? Because this is a really
there's no cell.
spotty
cellular
cell
phone.
coverage area.
But it is a lot less, those, collars will last, 5 years versus every 3 or 4 months up to a year to change the batteries. These last 5 years, they're $300 each, but, it's costing about quite a bit less than the tower, so, but if you don't have cell coverage, I guess.
Didn't know you just wrote down $30,000. That's a
That's
What's
over
that?
5 years.
We gotta be careful as well, don't I worry about dictating operations of other people's farms. I get it. It is also a management tool. It's not purely used for, so it's like, she's already bought the towers. No one, so she's kind of committed to that process, those tools. But it is also a management tool. Like you keep track of your herd, so you can go around the mark when you know, for efficiencies and use.
There's not a
So it's not a-
100,000 acres of allotment, how many towers you might need.
Depends on the ground, the coverage of those towers.
So you have some towers already, but the thought would be like add 2, 1, 5, like.
Well, I was thinking of like, I mean, for the grant, it's like add a tower, you know, here's like, we're buying towers, we're paying for the collars on things. It's like, well, I don't know, like contributing to that as like your point of like, why would the Wolf grant pay for like all the towers or whatever, you know, or like the whole operation, like that's sort of silly. So it's like contributing to the cost was like the idea, I guess.
I just pulled up your email with the costs on there, so as, we'll be careful in the wording here. We can pay for future towers, we can't pay for past towers,
Right.
but we could pay for yearly collar rentals, and so you indicated $10,000 for a tower, per tower, and $50 per cow for the collars lease every year. So if you have a herd amount, is that the right word? Herd amount? And then a tower amount, then we can say $10,000 to add a tower and $15,000 for the collar renewal lease for X amount of cattle, or some variation of like.
And the software license.
Yes.
I don't think there is a software license that's included in the collar.
Yeah, it's like, it's a collar rental, the collars get rented, they're not like purchased.
No, do they, like, the producer have to supply like receipts for all this?
The state is asking for very little.
No.
I mean, the money passes through the county, right? The county finance is not gonna cut somebody a check like it's getting some receipts, so even if the state doesn't require it.
Paying the,
Yeah, it's all pass through grant. So if the state would be paying the county, then the county would be using those funds. And the county could get a block of funds and then choose not to pay out, but I don't see that scenario
when they have to
whatsoever,
give it
but
back at the end of the year if they don't do it right.
Yeah, that'll be a good question actually for finding. I'll have to flush out those details once we know what we're awarded about.
And is the county, I saw the county had to pay for the 10%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
10%.
10% match, but we can count Jen's time,
Oh, okay.
Staff time.
staff time.
Last meeting, there was 3 staff members in here, all the staff work, preparation work, so.
You shouldn't be cheap, Jen.
I mean, if you wanna plug a rate. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But so I would say we keep this in mind that we're judicial on our asks and correct on our asks, right? Because we still have to go before the board and get the board to approve the asks as well. So throwing out $150,000 for preventative measures without kind of having some sort of backup, like just because the county recommends it or just because the committee recommends it does not mean necessarily that the board is going to go for it. I have not received any indication that they're not, but I just wanted to put that out there about that. And that's a solid flag, Johnny, on accountability from the rancher who receives those funds. So we'll have to work once those funds are approved we'll probably have to some sort of contract or agreement with the.
Essentially, the county would pay the producer directly and not the company where they're getting the stuff from.
Yeah,
Reimbursement.
I'm pretty sure it'd be a reimbursed. These are all reimbursed. This one is preventative measures. That's a big. I'll have to do some digging on that question. That's a solid question though. I mean, clearly no check is gonna be cut before then, but I'll have to check with our finance team and probably with a couple of our counties and see how they best do it. Because normally these are reimbursable grants, so we see all that paperwork ahead of time. The depredation, we can see that, we have documentation for it. Preventative measures, we may need some sort of accountability.
Can I ask Charlie about, so you got the fence first and range riders, both are intended to keep track of the herd. Would one be more prevention? I'm assuming range riders would prevent more than the vent system.
It's been like the ODFNW or whatever. Aaron was talking about the benefit of the herd being collared in like where it is, like whatever they call this, like it's the wolf area, approved wolf area or
Aqua,
yeah.
yeah.
And how that is like a sort of a cross benefit to the study of the wolves, their behavior, the whole interface, so that's sort of like the purpose of maybe the committee or the county supporting the collars. That's like the case for that,
Sure.
right? So it's like, why are we using collars?
No,
Not for that,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
So
like,
that-
is that like another benefit? Definitely. The range riders, it's like, I mean, how much do people ride around and check their cows? Not that much if you don't have wolves. So the fact that like our cowboys are out there every single day is because there's wolves, not to go out and be like, how are you doing?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
So-
you never go to that water hole. We're gonna be somewhere near that.
So is it 25, just to keep up with my notes, $25,000 initial suggested amount thrown out, collars, tower, and range riding? Or was that just for the
That
collars?
was just for the
The
first
collar and
defense,
tower,
I
okay.
thought, and like having like a pretty full-time range rider is just, it just costs quite a bit to have somebody out there,
What do we, do you have any sense of the cost of that?
The
Johnny,
maintenance.
I'm going to be, if we have any time left, I'm gonna be addressing that with talking to Daniel Curry, who Ellie and Aaron and I and Wolf Welcome Committee has talked with, and what he's proposing about range riding. And
That would be.
Maybe I
for
could mention
additional
it.
producers.
maybe I can mention it now, well, without going into, he has a nonprofit in Washington. He's a professional range rider. He has books written about him, a film on him. He is now, he's been teaching range riders how to do it, and he is, if he gets a huge nonprofit behind him, he'll find out in 2 weeks. He may be able to actually give our state range riders for little or no cost. He's basing this on a big nonprofit.
A
Get
big
behind
foundation
this.
or something,
Pardon?
a big foundation. Okay.
Well, yeah. And
So the
I-
foundation pays the range riders, and they go out. to
Yeah,
the
he's
spread.
teaching them now, and they're used in Washington State, but he could actually, and he told me this is a direct phone conference I had with him. Ellie's been talking with him, Aaron has been Aaron is going to bring him in to talk to, Grant County, where they have so many depredations, he's gonna be talking one-to-one, one-on-one with ranchers. So, I thought, so that's a possibility, because, when Baker County talked about it, there was a nebulous figure around 20, 30 an hour, maybe a monthly amount. And now Ellie, she emailed me about looking into a half-time employee just for Cook County for using the non-lethal federal wildlife services to do maybe some range riding, but it's very expensive. The quote was from the Federal Wildlife Services non-lethal part was $72,000 a year for half-time.
That's
And,
a rip-off.
you know,
Yeah, I met that guy. And he was sort of like publicizing the service.
oh, Daniel Curry, you mean? Or-
No,
the other,
the
wildlife
wildlife
services.
services
Okay.
guy.
Yeah,
And,
they will do a lot that Aaron, I mean, both would do, fill in a lot for what Aaron is having to do over this huge area of 16 counties. Because he can put up fladry, he can put up fox lights, he can do the fencing along with range riding. And so that's another option, but he won't know for several weeks if this is gonna
Well,
go through.
I think we should, like strategically, I would suggest that we put in for range riding dollars. And then if that happens to come through, then we can use those dollars for some other preventative measures work. But if it doesn't come through, then we still got it.
I would propose $20,000 for like range riding.
So
Or
yeah.
a ranch of
In
ours.
your email, you put $22 an hour, which would be more than that.
I know,
if you
but
want
it's
full-time.
like,
You know,
whatever.
yeah. They're doing
We
other
would
stuff.
I would also say that we know that they're gonna pay around between 30 to 60% of what we ask for. So
I mean, $22 per hour. If you did 1,000 hours, working a full-time year-round, that's 2,080 hours. So if you did half of that, basically half-time version 22, but that would be 22,000.
Yeah, so
That'd
that's
be
why I was like, I don't know, like $20,000. I know to like hire a cowboy to live on the ranch, cost me $4,000 a month, you know, and then plus a place to live. So I'm like, okay,
Is
well,
it-
like half the time,
Is it
$2,000.
is it seasonal? Is it seasonal, or do you really want to range rider year?
Well, I would call it seasonal. So like, so to that point, I was like, okay, like 6 months, I don't know. I don't know. I was trying to come up with something like easy. But I mean, the $22 an hour, then you can hire someone who just comes in with their horse, their own truck, their own trailer, and they're just coming to like ride the range. They're not like on the ranch full time, like fencing and fiddling around, you know? It's like, okay, this is like just to hire a guy to monitor the herd, which how long is that gonna take? Like 4 hours to do a loop, you know? So it's half a day. So then, you know, I don't know. Soon.
Okay. 1,040 hours, half a year,
Mhm.
$22, 22,880.
Yeah, but that's paying for a full-time job for half a year, whereas they're not gonna be doing those, yes, they're ranging for half the year, but they're not gonna be doing that as a full-time job if on your payroll.
Okay.
But,
So they're
then
not gonna
they
be
might
there.
have a contract as it comes out, but even then, they're only gonna take 4 hours to do the full
But
loop.
also, can you hire someone for $20 an hour? I mean, okay.
I mean, that sounds like awfully low rate to me, but I
With a
don't.
roof farm, with a roof farm, trust me.
I'm just pulling it from the email. I don't have any. You put that email together for us a while ago, I think. Yeah, back in October.
Can the ODA ever come back and like audit the grants? Like, okay, now, like pick this one out and be like, okay, well,
We have to submit a report at the end of the year showing what the money was spent for.
got
The money, if we did $20,000 for range riding and only spent $18,000 on range riding, but then spent an additional $4,000 to support another tower that was bought. That's completely acceptable, or to do a workshop, or to do some other preventative measure along the way. But we will have to have a report, an audit, a report of some sense, which will be the last thing that the last meeting of the year.
With the range running, do you think it would have to go into depth as far as, name, how many hours they worked, where they were at?
That's a good question. I'll ask that. So there's a workshop, the grant workshop is on February 20th. I'm gonna attend. So I'll ask that question of like, what should we be preparing for going forward, and what you'll need in that report, so that we know we have our ducks in a row. We're not caught up in December 2024, like, oh shoot, we should probably, and we're definitely gonna need documentation on the county side when we start cutting those checks out. Right. So, I'll have those two things on my plate to get more information on, so that we, as a committee going forward, can keep these things in mind as we have future discussions. And I think one of the things here, the last agenda item, is to talk about future topics. But our next committee meeting will be after we know what the state has allocated for the roads. It looks like they make a decision within 2.5 weeks of the closing deadline, which is really fast for these things. So your next
That's why they don't want any details in here.
Right. So the next meeting, once you know what that pool of money is for, you can start going into depth about some of these questions, and then I will have hopefully some of these answers for you as well.
We need a request for this specific ranch. And then another request for anyone else that we can talk to.
Yeah.
And then something about educational opportunities.
Yes.
For the general
If we
ranching public.
we could have those three categories of preventative requests.
Who's gonna put that all together?
You are right now.
And then to agenda?
Yeah, but I need that information from the
But
committee to do it. I can't make
needs-
those decisions.
She needs the committee to kind of outline out for her what she's putting into the application. So, just to kind of home in on this a little bit, what do we think is an appropriate number of hours and an appropriate rate for range riding?
You said 6 months and 4 hours a day? Ish.
And is that every day, or is that Monday through Friday, or is it every day? Every day.
I mean,
It's every day.
it's up and down.
Okay.
Housework.
It's,
So, all
this
right.
is a really easy grant. There's a huge pool of money. Putting some random numbers in here is like, I don't think there's any risk of like putting it there. I have like zero concern. Personally. And then they'll tell us how we actually administer it. Like, we're not worried about it right now, So,
Okay.
I don't.
182 days, 4 hours, 728 hours. What rate do we use?
For the $22.
Random.
Even with inflation? Or shortages? 22. That's only $16,016.
Okay, so go back to the 20,000 you
20,000.
said initially,
Yeah.
and then add the 25 to the other stuff and call it good.
Right. Thank you, Stephen.
Sorry, we're just throwing out numbers.
I know.
And then there's 7.
Okay, the way we get to 20,000, 200 hours, or sorry, 200 days, 4 hours a day, $25 an hour. 20,000.
Yeah. There you go.
I wish I went for you, Phil.
200 days,
You pay me more.
4 hours a day.
Every job application.
Not even talking medical.
$75.
Yeah.
Now, if any of you are thinking about applying to be the range rider, you have to recuse yourself.
So,
So what it looks like is that the Shante Samuels Ranch is requesting $45,000 total in preventative measure funding. That's what I have down so far. So maybe we make a motion first for that one, and then we can go for the general preventative funds.
Before we make a motion, can I ask a question, sorry? Jane?
Oh, yeah, no, go.
So I said before that it looks like a 30% it's likely that of that 45 requests, we're likely to get 30% of it. Is that correct? Something someone said.
Sunny said in the past, somewhere between 30 and 60% of preventative measure fund requests
So-
were paid out, but we don't have a historic of what was requested versus what they paid out. The other thing that she shared, and I'm guessing that's an average, the other thing she shared was that those who've had a depredation are way more likely to get preventative measures. So we have one depredation that a grant request we're gonna go after, and there's been many others in other different parts of the state, right, that have depredation. So they're probably gonna pool all those, if I'm guessing based on my conversations, pool all those depredation preventative measure requests together, prioritize those, and then probably work their way down. If I had to guess from what a conversation I've had with them, how they're gonna do that.
Money available
But
this year,
there's an
right?
unprecedented
more
amount
money,
of money available.
Yeah.
And when I go to, I'll be in Washington DC in a couple weeks, and I'm gonna ask our members of Congress to dial up the federal share that they're sending to the state board too. So,
Do we know if these wolves, the two wolves that have done this depredation, my understanding is they're not collared now.
That's also my understanding.
Do you know if there's a plan to collar those wolves?
There has
Yeah.
been.
Aaron talked about this in the
Know
June
that.
meeting. Yeah, they've been actively trying to color. So the last update this committee has had on those colorings is as of June 26th, they had not been colored. That is not part of the report that ODF sends out, so I don't know. Those things could have changed since then. Don't know either way, but Aaron said they were actively trying to color, but also said it was a very difficult process to color.
and he also said, you collar a wolf and then it dies a couple years later, and it's kind of like you spent a whole lot of work getting that collar on that wolf, and then, and it's not.
And the upper Deschutes wolves, he collared one and the female just left. She's heading towards the Earhart. So he has no collars for the upper Deschutes, and they had 7. So, I mean, but
One of the other things he said, I mean, he kind of like talked about, like wolves, in the wild, wolves only live a couple of years, and then he talked about how the male in this pair only has one eye, and it sounded like I'm reading between the lines. I was like, okay, he doesn't really expect these animals to live.
But they also just found another one. So it's not just a pair, like
Okay.
there was a sighting like across the ranch and the whole biologist came out and tracked the thing and it's like a whole nother animal. So it's like,
it might be.
There's gonna be more.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
Can I
It's gonna be
also
tough.
just add, I gotta find a better term than arse covering, but as an arse covering, method,
We are recorded.
I know that you guys have, I know, Australia, this is me dialed down and swearing. I know your allotment crosses two counties, right? Is there any way of, say we did get the funding for a base station? Can we confirm that that stays in Deschutes County? Is that doable? Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure that so we don't get into trouble.
Yeah.
Yes,
The other thing that we can consider in future meetings, we don't have time today, but like, if as Jefferson gets their program up and running, does it make sense to pair on certain?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, because you could in
Synergies.
theory
Yeah.
request collars from both counties for the same bunch of cows.
Or if you're gonna do educational workshops, does it make sense to have a borderline on the counties when the range doesn't have a borderline?
I'm not accusing anything, sorry, I'm just saying.
Okay, so just keep an eye on the time.
Yes, we, till our scheduled end time, we have 10 minutes, but, if it takes us a little longer, I hope we can stick around for a little bit. Do we want to request anything for other producers in the general vicinity?
Does anybody have?
Someone's asked, I do think there's some value, and this may not cost any money at all. Maybe talking to the board and something like that, and kind of putting something in the paper to advertise that other producers should contact ODFW if they suspect or attack. Like, how do we get the word out? Because Sarah Lee was saying she was struggling with, all right, well, we had these problems, but we didn't know what to do. How do we ensure that people know what to do when that happens?
And
Media.
and kind of know what they're looking Yeah, like, there's funny things happening, so what's going on?
Well, isn't that like the point of your committee? Welcome.
Well, to a certain extent, we've been trying. We had a workshop, but, not that many ranchers in Deschutes County. We had one in Cook County that showed up at that. They're well ahead of us. So we only had a few ranchers from Deschutes County, so the word is not really out there. So maybe some media attention to it would be good.
I mean, maybe starting a little more basic. You know, how do you ranch with wolves? It's like, do you even know that there's wolves here? And, you know, what might that mean? As opposed to kind of jumping right to like, you know, how do you ranch in a wolf landscape?
Do you think like when we're talking about sort of general preventative measures, we just put in like another 45,000 for people to be able to apply for over the course of this year? Like if it's awarded to us, we're gonna find out in March, and if we don't use it, we get it back. But like kind of doubling it for people who experience, I mean, if they wanna try the dogs or the range riding or any other preventative measures, like they can just apply.
Can we actually even get the preventative stuff if they haven't applied by the deadline because it's for the future?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of leeway when we get preventative measure funds and how we spend them.
Yeah, as a county, you can like apply for a pool, so it's like,
Yeah.
okay, we have one rancher with a kill and like, and requested preventive measures, like, that seems like a priority. But then, like, bulking out our ask to see if
Yeah.
other people want it.
And that's been historically, so last year we were thinking of trying to rush this, getting a committee through last January, and we just couldn't do it to get funds, but I reached out to some other counties, and they said, when we were first getting started, we would just ask for $1,000 for educational material, and then we figured out how we were gonna spend those later on in the year, like, so, and, you know, so yes, it can be used for any sort of legitimate preventative measures, whether that goes to a specific rancher or livestock owner, or more general education activity, or like, yes, there's and I think one county just bought a bunch of flaggery and then like gave it out as they heard about people, like,
Sure.
yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility when you have that money. Use it for what the committee needs fit and as these needs arise.
But
So can we
45,000
just,
is
like,
also
make
a
them-
lot. I mean, it's
Not-
too
well,
many.
not really compared to
In my
like,
head,
to what other
but two
people are
wolves.
getting, what other
Sounds
counties are
like-
getting.
They've got a lot for,
Like,
lot for wolves.
But I mean, they've got a lot of experience with this too.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Iowa County and Grant County are just dealing with several amounts of wool and more than that. That's a lot of different.
I mean, you're right, you know, there's, you know, I mean, there's just, you know, Baker County got 50,000. Jackson County got 47,000.
What are we up
Yeah,
to?
they've got
We up to
their
another 45, we're at $90,000. We're well over.
That's right.
We've got the least amount
But
of.
they
wolves.
also like only award like, whatever, some like 30 to 60% of it, so it's like, why not ask for it? I don't think it's gonna be off-putting.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the other thing to consider in terms of, you know, it's not like, I know I'm only gonna get 60%, so I'm gonna ask for a lot more, so I get what I wanted. It's also about the quality of the acts too, so I mean, if we can say we need $45,000 and be pretty specific, like, we're gonna use it for this, we're gonna use it for this, we're gonna use it for this. And they can say, oh, those are high impact things, you know, that's legit, and maybe they give us more than our 60,000, 60% at 60% of our ask. But, you know, if we're kind of, if we're more speculative about it, like, you know, I've sat on a lot of grant review committees, and I don't look on that very favorably. No, I mean, I want people to have a well thought out requests. So I mean, I
don't have the time for that.
and I don't, I mean, we were talking about awareness, right? I mean, buying, you know, newspaper ads or radio ads or social media ads or TV ads, that costs a lot of money. So, I mean, we can, I mean, I think we could get to a $45,000 request that's like pretty well thought out, but,
Well, you can estimate that there's likely to be, because our wolf pack is increasing. likely to be more depredations. So you could estimate what you might need to solve those or to mitigate those.
To get
And
ahead.
then also have an outreach, program, which it seems to me, should be done through BLM, who issues the allotment permits. In other words, they can tell you everybody that has an allotment that's grazing cattle, right? Wouldn't that be, logical?
They can't disclose, that's not public information.
Well, you can ask for it and it is public.
You can ask for, I don't think you can get contact information from someone.
You can get the names.
Yeah.
Who it is. Oh, yeah. I just got two.
Oh, geez,
Yeah. But, so, yeah, I can show you, but yeah, you can get the grazing, copies of the grazing permits.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think it'd be relatively easy to be able to reach out. Maybe there's 10 ranchers total that might fall in, I don't know, into that category. Maybe Sarah Lee would know, but that's in, let's say, in the general area that might be, just in Deschutes County.
I mean, can we assume that all livestock producers have BLM grazing allotments? I mean,
No,
I mean,
some
of
are
your
just near
100,000 acres, I mean, how much of that is federal land?
like all of it.
All multiple.
Yeah, the grazing allotments go with the
For you.
whole place.
We're all on private pastures.
100% private pasture. Yeah,
Right in the same neighborhood.
Right, we kind of have different places where I move them all the time, but yeah, we're all, that's 100%.
you don't have any allotment.
But that's more pasture than forest or,
Right, we have no grazing allotments.
irrigated,
Yeah.
irrigated.
So that's a whole different deal.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that wolves aren't on
Absolutely.
private land.
Yeah,
I mean,
they don't know boundaries, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know, they can jump fences and everything, but, but on the other hand, you're watching that much more closely than allotments where you just turn the cattle out.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
like
mean-
half of our predation was on our irrigated fields, like, 200 yards from the house.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I'm assuming was in the winter when you guys brought everything home, there's no game or less game, so they're kind of going in for the easy meal. Ish.
I mean, there.
But the point is, it's not like it's just like ranchers that just toss their cows out, like everybody's, I don't know,
I
I
mean-
just feel like the wolves are around. Checking.
I think where you were going, Gordon, was there are ways to know who the ranchers are in our community.
Yeah.
I mean,
Targeted outreach.
we can ask the BLM, we could talk to the Oregon Cattlemen's Association, we could, probably do a query in the county database of, exclusive farm use zone lands. This,
Seems like somebody ought to.
like
be able
somebody
to
could do
figure
a
out.
quick GIS exercise and look at, there's all kinds of ways we could identify.
Deschutes County has the Farm Bureau has a website, for example.
Flower even.
Remember, we followed that pretty closely
Yeah.
back last May. So you can get the word out pretty cheaply, right?
There's that Central Oregon Cattlemen's,
OCA.
which is what I
Oh, yeah, right.
advertised in. But-
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
So Biddy, we're talking about, just to keep it on track here, like a pool of outreach funds
Right.
for educational outreach funds for local Central Oregon ranchers and livestock owners who may be impacted by wolves being in the area.
I mean, we want people to be aware, right? Like just awareness, the wolves are here. We want people to, if people have concerns about, wolves being in contact with their livestock, do we want them to come to us? What do we want them to do? Or, where do we want them to go to get information?
We have a
Do you
county
wanna
extension
pledge-
agent.
There is an extension office.
Isn't that their job, kind of, to help do this kind of outreach and provide some educational materials and maybe a virtual meeting now and then or something?
Extension agents are often very specialized. There's like the extension agent that works for
Yeah, but there's
Small
like
acreage
the
farmers.
Central Oregon Ag newsletter that comes from the extension office that we could just like throw a blurb in for free. Totally, it goes out to producers, it's like, hey, we've applied for a small pot of money in 2023 for preventative measures. If you're interested, call Jen.
So you ask for $45,000.
Is there a different?
Kind of it on outreach and advertising and maybe a meeting or two.
Yes, sir. That's like farmers and ranchers, that's like a lot of people, that's the extension, whatever, you know, it's like a public.
I would just suggest the group that the committee can hash out the details on specifically how those outreach and educational funds would be spent once we know what those are, but we don't need to put that level of detail unless the committee is set on putting that level of detail. We don't need to put that level of detail in the grant application. So what we need to take out of today is like, we want to apply for these amount of funds. We're going to use it this way. We're going to reconvene in April and we're going to discuss a thorough plan on the best uses of those funds that we actually receive. I just want to throw that out there. If you want to put that level of detail in the application, we can entertain that. The state is not asking for that.
We should not do that.
Just sounds so vague, if we don't
I
put
think
any
it's,
details.
I think it's a very
Listing it as
vague grant.
Outreach and education. And then something specific for producers who ask for something for this year.
As somebody who's written a bunch of outreach plans, I would want to know, well, who your target audience is. Obviously, we know who it is. Who your target audience is. What do you want to say to them? You know, what do you want to tell them? And then what action do you want them to take? What's the behavior that you want to result from the outreach?
But that's not what they're asking for.
Yeah, I thought we had to do that supplemental for each of our grant funds. So I asked Sunny, like, what should we put in there? And she's like, you don't need to do that for any of them. Like, you only do that for, we'll do that for Shantae's ask that supplemental page. She's like, literally just fill this out, check the box, how much you want, and then 1 to 2 sentences about what you're asking for. That's what I'm hearing from ODA. I'm not,
So we'll do all of that
I'm,
stuff.
I,
At some point.
I'm not trying I'm just telling you, because I specifically called her to ask, like, what do we need to prepare to put in
If
this?
I was a
And
grant reviewer, I'd be rolling my eyes.
Yeah.
That's,
I think this is just a different kind of grant. It's
Yeah.
for rural
Yeah.
counties and rural, simple ass people.
Yeah.
So let's just put in a simple thing and see what we get, and then we'll get to do something.
And I'll clearly submit putting in the grant until I've gone to that workshops to see if like I misheard or we need to have more details, and at that juncture, if we do, then I'm comfortable putting together a written statement and sending it around BCC to get committee feedback on that. But I specifically asked her because I thought we had to fill out that supplemental with more detail for each of the dollar amounts. You know how there's that checkbox of like what all the different preventive measures, it's like, yeah, like, just check the box and yeah.
So to go back to the question of like the 3 categories of preventative projects, there's the stuff for the rancher that's the livestock producer that's experienced depredation. There's potential stuff for other livestock producers, and then there's the outreach and education. Are we saying that we want to ask for money for preventative measures for other livestock producers and we'll just figure out later what we'll do? Or are we saying we want to ask for money for awareness and outreach?
And potential preventative measures people can apply for.
And
You can apply for just like a pot of money and we should just put a number on it, some reasonable amount of money. I would like to suggest $20,000. It seems like an easy number. You know? And just call it that. And it may or may not be funded depending on who else is asking and like what their priority is. But just saying like, you know, I don't think we just want to do outreach. We want to have like money for preventative measures for people this year that have experience with problems.
We could say something like this pool of money for education and outreach, and based off of that, we expect that we're going to hear from other ranchers and livestock owners who will want to engage in preventative measures, and we want this pool of funds that will be able, so we'll be able to support those requests.
Yes, that's perfect. It's perfect.
Right, so then that's $2
And do we have to
amount.
divvy it up? It's like
Well, we don't have
5,000
to,
and
I
50,000?
can word that however you guys want. But
Yeah.
that's kind of what I'm hearing here is we're gonna first engage in this education outreach components to be determined. we expect to hear back from ranchers who want to engage and we want to have funds available for them to
Right,
use.
$2,000 for outreach, $20,000 for a pool.
I'd say maybe a couple more thousand for that outreach.
What you don't have is any cushion in there for another depredation.
That will deal with that next year.
Yeah.
They can only be retroactive.
It's always retroactive.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Do we need to put in that we will guarantee a certain percentage of received funds will be spent on outreach? Do we need to write anything like that? Or we just decide that later?
If we ask for 5,000 outreach and we spend $0 on outreach, because it all gets cost, we can put it all towards preventative measures or we give it back. If they don't use it. So sorry, I missed the figures that are being debated around.
$5,000 for outreach, $20,000 for a pool.
Is that a motion?
And we still haven't done
I'll
the,
second the motion.
Sarah Lee's motion.
can we do one full motion? Because we still haven't done approval for Ashante. 25,000 for compensation for the tower and yearly leases of the livestock and $20,000 for seasonal range riders. So we didn't vote on that one either. We'll need
Make them separate.
We'll need to do that separate because Sarah Lee can participate in the second vote, but not in the first vote. So we just need those two to shore up and then we're,
So first motion was,
the first motion was $25,000 was suggested to apply for compensation rates to cover the cost of a new tower at $10,000 and the yearly lease of collars for the livestock at $50 per collar. Additionally, $20,000 for a seasonal range rider, 200 days and 4 hours a day at $25. And this would be for specifically for Ashante Samuel's Ranch.
and did you say compensation in there or
I did say compensation,
make
preventative.
that?
Yep. I'll do my series.
With
editing
that, I would
after
say
tonight.
so moved.
Second.
Any more discussion on that one?
Wait,
Uh,
oh, sorry.
What do you have, Jen?
Nope, nothing.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next motion was for $5,000 of outreach, awareness raising, education funding, and $20,000 of preventative measures for livestock producers who respond to that outreach, seeking funds for eligible preventative measures. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, so
That's what I have.
I would move that.
Second.
Any further discussion?
So we've just asked for $75,000.
Yep.
To worry. But true wolves and there's a lot of prevention for true wolves. In terms of, I would like to be able to justify that a bit more, but I don't know how to go about that. You know what I mean? I just think I've
Didn't you say
got
there's wolves in the South County though? I mean, there's 2 wolves, like where we are, we have a depredation, but there's wolves around this county.
We're an area of emerging wolf activity and we're trying to get ahead of it. So, right? And
Yeah,
yeah,
there's,
there's-
it's like, why did you
I'm not trying to, well, I think just like.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I wanna give the rationale.
Yeah.
Like, why do we deserve so much prevention funds?
Yeah.
Because if we get ahead of it here, then we won't have as many depredations later, right? Hope. Okay, that's.
I do.
And that the Southern counties actually has been designated since I think July of 2022 as an area of
I
known
feel like
wolf
that's my money.
activity with at least, at the time it was a pair with 3. I haven't checked on it lately, but it was the pack was roaming between Klamath and Deschutes, but they've been caught on camera and it was officially designated as an area of known wolf activity back in 2020. Just to say that, but I'm notating your flag. And your follow-up comments. on that.
Did we?
We haven't voted. We've got the motion on the
So
table.
motion, it's been motioned and seconded. Do we have any further discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Are we done, Jen?
So just two things we can do I can do mainly via email is the next, meeting. I was gonna suggest we have this conversation today, but we can have it next meeting of like getting more on a regular meeting schedule now that we've gone through some of this nitty gritty committee forming stuff, but we can discuss that next committee meeting. Either Johnny or Ethan or both of you are gonna be gone for an extended
I'm
period?
gone at the start of like first half of March.
Okay, and it looks like if it's the same schedule as last year, the applications are due March first, they awarded on March 22nd. So maybe the first or second week of April is the next meeting. I can send around the doodle poll for. Is that generally, okay, great. And then,
And for our agricultural, our friends in the agricultural community, like, is that a little bit better than?
As long as it's before the 15th, that's when we normally turn on water and it gets a little crazy for me.
15th is, yeah, should check.
before April 15th, okay.
All good? Or-
April 15th is like,
Yeah, no, like, so before April 15th, right?
Okay, I'll send around the last date for the first
After
2
March
weeks.
22nd,
Yeah.
before April 15th.
And I'll talk to Sunny to see if they're gonna be on track for that, meeting schedule. We could always meet even if they don't have allocations, but. And then the last thing was to briefly talk about agenda topics for next meeting, which I had allocation of grant resources. And then potentially building out an outreach and educational campaign.
Mhm.
And then do you want to also, we can do this anytime coming year, but it on the table today was coming up with a more formal process for depredation or compensation for missing livestock. So do we want to punt that maybe one more meeting if we're gonna get the allocation of funds this next meeting?
If we get the allocation of funds, that's probably a lot.
Then stick with the allocation
I
of
mean,
funds.
unless they
and
give
then-
us all the money, then.
Yeah,
Well, I guess if they give us a part of the money, then we have hard choices to discuss. If they give us all the money, then we got a lot of work to plan.
so if we have the funds for the next, if we know the funds for the next meeting, we'll stick to that. If we don't know the funds, then I'll bump up the hashing out of the process for missing depredation grant requests.
And there was. Yeah. Yeah, how.
So you want to have formal process for preventative measures as well.
And then outreach.
Okay.
So then-
So if we have the grant funds, we'll talk about allocation of grant resources and building an outreach and educational campaign. If we don't, we'll talk about developing a formal process for applying for preventative measure grants and missing livestock depredation grants. Perfect. That's it for me.
Sorry to keep you all, but we do need to do public comment, right?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, please.
And I may have to do this another time,
The
but I had 15 minutes.
the educational measures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about Daniel Curry, but I was gonna talk more about Ellie Gage, so I don't know, and what she's doing in Crook County and with the Western Landowners Alliance for grants, so
Yeah.
there's no time for that.
No,
It probably would fit really well in the next discussion on
Right.
talking about the
we
educational
know how
outreach.
much money we have for educational outreach, because we were very broad brushed today.
Yeah.
And we could bring Ellie in as a speaker, and then that way we don't have to wait for
That's what
public
we'd like-
comments to hear
like
from her.
to do, as well as Daniel Curry actually asked if he could sometime get in the future agenda. So I don't know if,
She's no longer with us.
oh, she is,
Yeah.
okay, so
She left at one comment way back in the meeting, but I think
Oh, okay.
she dropped about a half an hour ago.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then that's fine. Cause I think she was gonna comment after I gave my thing.
Right, so no public comments. We talked about, we're gonna doodle a next meeting and somewhere in that range, and I think that unless anyone else has anything for the good of the order. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Sorry to keep you late.
I have tinfoil. If anyone wants to bring home sandwiches with them, I'll wrap it up for you.
Thank you, Jen, again, for holding it down.
I am impressed that we ended at 7:45. Seeing where we were at 7:20.